Welcome to the Scalar Learning Podcast, your central hub for all things related to education. Join us every episode for the most up-to-date tips and strategies on how to maximize student potential. Sit back, listen, and enjoy. Scalar Learning, give me that Scalar Learning. Scalar Learning, give me that Scalar Learning. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Scalar Learning Podcast. Today, we are again shining the spotlight on a particular career and talking about how math is involved in this particular career. What we are talking about today is being an arbitrage trader. This is something in the finance sector. I'm not going to explain it myself exactly because I'm going to let my guest do that, Jasper Ribbers. And Jasper was an arbitrage trader, I believe, for about 6.5 years, maybe 7 years, somewhere in that time frame. And he started out in Holland, also worked in the US in Chicago, and for quite some time. I know he was really good at it, really enjoyed it while he did it. And he's always been a huge math guy. He's now since left that field, and he's been doing a bunch of other things since then. He's been traveling a lot. He's written some books. He's done all sorts of stuff. But he is here to talk about that particular career, and it's a very lucrative career, and it allowed him a lot of great opportunities, allowed him to purchase his first home in Amsterdam, and do a lot of amazing things in his life. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Jasper Ribbers to the show. Jasper, how's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's going pretty well.
Sweet. So Jasper and me are very, very good friends. We've done a bunch of things together. We have written a book together, among other things. So obviously we know each other super well. But the audience doesn't know you. People who are listening don't know you. So Jasper, why don't you rewind the clock and take us back to university? Where did you study, and what did you study, and how did you get into arbitrage trading?
Sure. I went to university in Holland, in a town that's called Groningen, which is very hard to pronounce if you're not from Holland. You're welcome to give it a try.
Groningen.
It's not bad. Anyway, I studied econometrics. I've always been into economics and mathematics. And econometrics is pretty much a combination of economics, mathematics, and statistics. So I found it really interesting. And it was not very easy. It was pretty tough study. But I managed to plow through, and I wanted to get a good job. I wanted to make a lot of money. That was kind of what my goal was at that point in time. And so I heard about this trading job, and I heard people were making a lot of money with it. So I thought, let's give it a go. And I applied, and I immediately got hired.
And so can you tell people, what does it mean? What is an arbitrage trader? What does that mean?
So arbitrage basically means doing two transactions and making a profit without there being any risk. So as an example, imagine that there's a shoe shop next to your house where you can buy a pair of shoes for $100. And then imagine down the road, there's another shoe shop that buys shoes. And let's say that they buy the exact same shoes for $110. So that means that you could go to one shoe shop, buy the pair of shoes for $100, and directly sell it to the other shop for $110, and you make $10. Now that's an arbitrage, because it's basically a riskless investment. You're investing $100 in the shoes, but you're already guaranteed to make a profit on it. So that's basically what arbitrage is. And arbitrage opportunities are fairly rare, because obviously if it exists, then people will take advantage of it. But in the financial markets, people do take advantage of price differences. Now you might ask, well, how can you do an arbitrage in the financial market? Because if you look at a stock, there's only one stock, right? Who's gonna buy it for higher than somebody else bought it for? I mean, it's the same stock. Well, not really, because some stocks are listed on different exchanges. So, for example, let's take Royal Dutch Shell, which is a big oil company. It trades in Amsterdam, it trades in London, but it also trades in New York. Now, in Amsterdam, it trades in euros. In London, it trades in pounds. And in New York, it trades in dollars. But the shares are essentially the same. If you buy either of these shares, you get the same rights, you get the same amount of dividend, you just get it in a different currency. However, imagine that somebody in New York buys a lot of these shares, then the price in New York will go up, but the price in London or Amsterdam doesn't necessarily go up at the same time. And so what arbitrage traders do is they continuously watch all three of those stocks, and as soon as there's a price difference, they take advantage of that price difference by selling the more expensive stock and buying the cheaper stock. Now, obviously, you have to adjust for the exchange rate. So while after doing that trade, you also have to hedge your currency because you get a currency exposure from it. But that's essentially, in a nutshell, what arbitrage trading is.
Wow, that is really interesting. It seems very complex. So you're watching different spikes of sales in one market versus another market, and then you have to adjust for the currency. But also, I would imagine if you have a sharp spike in, let's say deflation in a particular country, or let's say like a sharp, all of a sudden the value of the euro jumps by a percentage or two relative to other currencies, that would in and of itself, would that create an arbitrage opportunity as well?
Absolutely. Changes in the currency can also create opportunities. You're absolutely right. Now, that's why, for example, when there's economic news coming out, there's often a lot of opportunities right after the news comes out because the prices still have to adjust. But in reality, this goes really, really fast. You got to imagine that every stock where there's like multiple listings and there's a lot of volume, and multiple parties are looking at these stocks, and these days they're using electronic trading platforms. So, we're talking about split seconds. We're talking about milliseconds here. When the price is out of line, it immediately gets pushed back into line by these trading algorithms. So that's why you don't see a lot of opportunities anymore. It's all about making very, very small margin and doing a lot of volume. Back in the day when I started, we were still doing manual trading. So you would literally, you would type in an order on your computer, and you would enter the order manually. Now, as you can imagine, it's a lot slower to do it manually than if the computer does it. And so I remember in my first year, sometimes there would be huge price differences between two stocks that were essentially the same. It was literally like there was just money lying around on the screen. I remember one time I was trading Nokia, the mobile phone company, and they had earnings. So the figures were just released. So the profit and the revenue, etc. So that's a big event, And then the price collapsed, and I was just a rookie at the time. And I was just looking at my screen, and it seemed like the price in one market was like half a euro different than the price in the other market. I wasn't sure if I was seeing it right, because that's half a euro per stock is huge, right? And so I thought it was right. I thought I saw it correctly. So, I bought like 40,000 shares, and then I sold 40,000 in the other market, and then I made like 20,000 euros like in an instant. And I was kind of shocked at the time, because I literally just come out of my training. But those opportunities existed back then. But now the computer algorithms, the machines, they'll keep it pretty much in line.
So is it nowadays, is it harder to be an arbitrage trader, or is it that the arbitrage traders have now developed better technology, so it's still a good field?
No, I mean, it's definitely still a good field. It's just the way that they trade is differently. When you're an arbitrage trader now, what you're doing is you're putting parameters in an automatic trading machine. You're basically teaching the computer, you're telling the computer how to trade. And so what will happen is that, there won't be huge opportunities in terms of price difference. The price differences you'll be talking about like a few cents difference, right? Let's say one stock trades $2 higher in the US than in Europe, right? That's $2. But if you do 100,000 shares, then you're still making $200, right?
Mm-hmm.
$2,000, sorry. So 2 cents on 100,000 shares is $2,000. So that's still a lot of money. If you can do 10 of those trades, then you're making $20,000. You know? But if you look at the screen, then you might not even notice the difference, right? Because it's just a couple cents.
I see. So this sounds like it must be, I imagine, a tough field to get into. A lot of people want to get into it. What is it? How did you get into the firm in the first place? What was the job application process like?
Well, the application process was very simple. They gave me 3 tests, and I remember I showed up there was 11 other people there. It was the 12 of us. The first test was 8 minutes, and what we had to do fairly simple calculations, but we had to do them really fast. And every mistake that you make, you got -2. You got 1 point for every answer that you got correct, and then you got -2 for a mistake. And then I think there was 80 questions, and you had to get up to like 60 points or something. So basically what it came down to is like you had to be very, very accurate and very fast, and which makes sense because that's basically while you're trading, that's basically also what you have to do. When you're trading, you have to be very fast and you have to be very accurate. So if you make a small mistake, if you're off by a zero, that could cost a lot of money. And that's happened to me actually. I've made mistakes that have cost me like 10,000 euros, which is quite a lot of money for a silly mistake, right? So you got to be like very accurate. You got to be very fast. Now, after I did those 8 minutes, I was the only one who was invited to take the second test. All the 11 other people, they were all sent home. So their job application lasted for 8 minutes, basically.
All right, and then what were the second and the third tests like?
The second test was a different type of test. It was number sequences, right? You have to predict like what the next number is going to be. So, for example, a very simple example would be 1, 3, 5, 7 question mark.
Right.
Now, what do you think the question mark would be?
So that's an arithmetic sequence. So it'd be 9.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's a simple one. But I remember there was 30 of those sequences, and they were so difficult. They were really, really difficult. I remember looking at the first one, I was just thinking, what? I have no idea. But I ended up getting 21 points, which was exactly the amount that you needed, the score that you needed to get through to the third test. And then the third test was also calculations, but it was a little bit more complex. Where you have to do like divide by 0.06, and with a lot of how do you call them, like 1/3, 1/5? What do you call those things? Fractions, yeah. So a lot of like fractions, and that was a little bit more difficult. But then also you got a little bit more time to do the exercises. But in the end, I just passed. It was pretty close.
Just to clarify for anybody listening, Jasper is pretty much a math wunderkind. The only reason why he doesn't know the name for fractions is, of course, because he grew up in Holland. So obviously he knows it in his native language. But yeah, so just so there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, no, well, it's funny that you mentioned that because you're right. Like in school and at university, I was always one of the best in math. So I didn't study or I didn't practice before taking this test, because I'd taken a test before with a different trading firm, but at the time I was still studying, so I wasn't going to apply. But I just took it for fun because my buddy worked there, and I completely aced it. So I was very confident going into this test. But the company that I applied for was the best trading company in Holland, and I think right now they're one of the best trading companies in the US as well. The company is called Optiver. And so their test was significantly more difficult, and I didn't expect that. I just showed up. I thought I was going to ace it, and then when I saw the first couple exercises and I saw how little time we had, I got a little bit nervous actually, and I kind of regretted that I didn't do any exercises. I didn't practice for the test. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Optiver test is very difficult. If you Google Optiver test, you'll see a lot of people talk about the test on the forums, even in the US as well, and people are generally saying that it's very hard.
So what you've said so far, obviously, math is a huge part of the hiring process. And that's what I want to talk about now is how is math involved in the job? So just to even get into the door, your math abilities with sequences, with basic arithmetic, and with some other more complex equations, all that stuff had to be on point, 100%. But now talk a little bit about how you used math on a daily basis while trading.
Yeah, so there's two aspects. I would say there's two ways that you use math. First of all, during trading, you don't have to do very difficult calculations, but you have to do simple calculations very fast, and you have to be very accurate. And that's represented in the way that they, like I said, like making a mistake can be very costly. So, for example, a lot of trading, the type of trading that I did with the arbitrage trading, it's a lot of things are expressed in percentages. And so, you'd say that one stock is trading like 10 basis points or 20 basis points over the other. And a basis point is 1/100th of a percent. So it's 1 divided by 10,000. That's a basis point. And so, you have to be able to do quick calculations that are not very difficult, but you got to do them fast and you got to do them accurate, because if you have somebody on the phone and the person offers you a deal, you got to be able to quickly calculate, okay, how much money am I making, right? You got to quickly understand that if you set up like a spread where you buy one stock and you sell the other, because arbitrage, I was also doing like relative value trading, which basically means you take two stocks that are in the same sector, and then you expect them to sort of move together over time because it's the same factors that sort of drive the price, and so you would talk about the price difference in terms of percentages. And you would have to calculate, if this spread is going against me, like 1% or 2%, how much money would I lose? You want to be able to assess your risk. So I would say for the trading itself, you don't need to do very difficult calculations, but you got to do them fast and you got to be accurate. Now, there's another aspect of trading, which is coming up with strategies. And that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, because now, you can, as a trader, you're pretty much, at least at my company, I was free to develop any sorts of strategy that I wanted. And so, you're constantly trying to find relationships between different stocks and between different factors. You're trying to figure out what drives the stocks. You're doing, correlation and regression analysis. That gets a lot more complicated, right? You could even think about like probability theory as well. Like, what's the chance that this bet is going to work out in my favor? What's the chance that it will go wrong? What's the payoff? What's the expected value? And so there it gets a little bit more complicated.
And so if people are listening in, and let's say a student or even a parent of a student listening in and saying, this sounds like something I would be interested, or my child might be interested in, what are your recommendations right now in school? Like, what would you say that they should really be emphasizing going forward as far as skills that they need to be cultivating?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is to stop using calculators.
I love it.
Because if you don't use a calculator, you force yourself to constantly use your brain to do these simple calculations, And if you don't train your brain, then you're not gonna develop the skill, right? So that's the first thing I would suggest. And then I would say maybe do some exercises every now and then. Do some number sequences. Do some once a week. Maybe you have these programs that generate like random calculations, just practice. Especially like if you're actually going to apply and do the test like later on, you definitely want to practice a couple months ahead. Do some practice every day. But if you're still in school, then obviously that's still pretty far away. But I would say just make it a habit to train your brain on a regular basis. To maybe download some iPhone games or something where you have to do some calculations as part of a game. Those are the things that over time will grow your calculation muscle.
Awesome. I love it. And I tell my kids all the time, put the calculator away. You can do it, and you can break down even 2-digit times 2-digit multiplication problems. For kids, sometimes it seems a bit stifling, but you can do it if you approach it the right way and with practice. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to think about it as either a natural affinity or it doesn't exist. It can be developed. So that's amazing advice. Thank you so much, Jasper, for joining us. I hope everybody out there that was listening, that was useful, that was helpful. It was super interesting for me. I hope it was for you too. Jasper, if people want to get in touch with you, ask you questions, how can they do that?
I do have I have a travel blog, The Traveling Dutchman, that people can look at if they want to find out more about me. Feel free to send me an email at jasperribbers@gmail.com, which is JASPER and then RIBBERS @gmail.
Awesome. All that stuff will, of course, be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Jasper has also written a book with me. Would you like to plug that?
Sure. Get paid for your pad. So if you're interested in Airbnb hosting, if you're in school, you're probably still living with your parents. So I imagine, you're not in that position yet. But yeah, if you're interested in Airbnb hosting, go ahead and check it out. Getpaidforyourpad.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. And again, the show notes can be found at www.scalarlearning.com. And if you have any questions or comments for me, would love to hear from you. Email me at huzefa@scalarlearning.com. Would love to hear from you. Again, for the rest of the summer, remember, new episodes are dropping every day. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast if you want the latest and greatest info on all things related to education. Thank you guys for joining. See you all next time. Take it easy.
Scalar learning, give me that Scalar learning.